Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Muscatine County Board of Supervisors meeting for Monday, February 25th, 2019. I'll call the meeting to order. The first item of business is to review the agenda.
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Jeff has moved to approve. Santos has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. Item 3 is receive comments from the public. Anybody from the public wishing to address the board on something not on our agenda? Seeing none, we'll move right on to discussion and possible action to approve claims dated February 25th, 2019 in the amount of $347,183.58.
Move to approve.
Second.
Scott has moved. Jeff has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we will enter into a public hearing on proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2018-2019 Muscatine County budget. Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. You all should have gotten the detail of the amendment information in your packet, so I'll just go over briefly. Mainly what we're amending is for positions that were added after the current budget was adopted. So we're picking up those amounts for the sheriff, for zoning, and for general services. We're also amending the jail commissary. We're increasing the expenditure amount and the revenue amount by the same, even though in all reality the revenue amount will probably be a little higher than that. Board of Health, adjustments to the grant numbers. When they turn in their budget, we have no idea what those state grant amounts are going to be. So we have those numbers, so this is to correct those. In general services, we have some additional expenditures for building and maintenance for the building, and most of these are what we're over for those, and the security cameras at Park Avenue West that the board approved. We're amending the general services budget to cover that. We are increasing federal prisoner reimbursement by $210,000. We're decreasing the payment from the region amount. What we had budgeted is $237,000 less than what we're actually receiving from the region. We got an almost $200,000 grant from the Carver Foundation for conservation, put playground equipment at Discovery Park, so we're picking that up. And interest on investments, we're increasing that by $200,000. So in summary, we're increasing our expenditures $358,061. We're increasing our revenues $636,254 for a net increase to our fund balances of $278,193.
Sherry, on that region, go through that again. So we were requesting 900,000 back this year from the region. So you're saying
that's what
really
we had in our budget based on our estimate when we did the 18-19 budget. That's what we were estimating, and the amount ended up being less than that.
So it looks like we're only gonna draw down maybe 700,000.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Yep. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
No. I'd make a motion we close the public hearing.
It has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Scott is seconded. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Doug? Santos?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Public hearing is now closed. Excuse me. Next up, 5A, discussion and possible action to approve resolution 02251901, amending the FY 1819 budget.
Move to approve.
Been moved by Jeff,
Second.
second by Scott. This is a roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Santos?
Aye.
Doug?
Aye.
And I vote aye. And possible action on resolution 02251902, fiscal year 1819 budget appropriations.
Move to approve.
Jeff has moved. Scott has seconded. Roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Santos? Doug? And I vote aye. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action to approve resolution 02251903, petitioning the governor and legislature of Iowa to revise Iowa Code 53172 pertaining to absentee ballots with County Auditor Leslie Soule.
Good morning. You received this, I believe, through another county auditor last week, this request to do this resolution. I went ahead and put it in for you to discuss it and possibly do it if you choose to. Basically, what it's saying is that what we run into a problem with on elections is that fact that after Election Day, a ballot can be counted as long as it's timely postmarked. But we do receive some that are not postmarked, and so then they don't get counted. So it tends to be an unfair situation for some voters. They have no control over whether or not the post office postmarks their ballot. So the ones who possibly have mailed it on time, but the post office just didn't mark it, don't get theirs counted. But the ones who were lucky enough to have the postmark on there from the post office do get theirs counted. And so this generated out of some of the auditors wanting to change this to be what they call a sure count deadline, where the ballot for domestic voters, not for UCAVA overseas, but just for domestic, have to be received by election night, by the close of polls. That's what this is at. That's what they're asking with this resolution to do, is to make it clear that it has to be received on election day. I don't know how any of you feel about that, and so I have it on here for you guys to discuss and think about whether or not you want to do this resolution or not. That's what they were asking, is for the county boards to do this. But to me, it's totally up to you guys. We had 6 is all ballots that didn't count because they were not postmarked. We had 70. What did I do with it? We had 74, for the 2018 general, we had 74 ballots received after the election that were counted because of a timely postmark. We had 6 that were not counted because of a timely postmark, and we had 8 that were not counted because they just had a late postmark, and that isn't even at issue because they were mailed after the election.
So Leslie.
So we had 74 that were counted because of a timely postmark.
Help me understand the details of this. So I understand the problem. Post office doesn't always postmark things
Right.
anymore.
Right.
So in this resolution, if something had a timely postmark, but was still received after election,
And prior to the
polls close,
noon on Monday, yes.
it would still be okay.
It would still be okay, and
Okay.
no, not with this resolution, it would not, no. That's what this resolution would be saying, anything, in order for it to count, would have to be received by the close of polls on election day.
So it seems to me that.
So you'd actually have 74 that wouldn't have counted then if you
well,
had
they
this in place.
Would
Yeah.
have probably known that and submitted them earlier. ostensibly.
Possibly, yes, yes.
I mean, it seems to me if this is intended to address a situation where it's not a voter's fault because the post office didn't postmark it, it seems like it's a lot more certain that the post office will timely postmark it than necessarily timely deliver it. You're putting another step in there,
True, true,
so
yeah.
Give me a
And we
process.
had 13, I think it was, that we received, to be counted on, that we received by noon on that Monday, we received in that morning's mail that were postmarked. And I don't know where they'd been because they were mostly Muscatine ones, postmarked way back in the middle of October. And we were just receiving them.
Yeah.
So they did count because they were
I'm
postmarked.
a little hesitant to say something that would
Right.
make it more restrictive. I'm okay with, if it's not postmarked, putting the election day as the deadline. But those that have a timely postmark, I think they should be counted as we always have, because that's why we push our canvas off a
Right.
week, right? So that
Right.
we can make sure that all the ballots have a
Right,
chance to
correct.
get
And it
in.
gives the military ones coming overseas a chance to get in there too. Because sometimes theirs take a few weeks.
I mean, chances of them changing dramatically the outcome of the election are very slim.
This kind of started because there was a situation out in Winneshiek, I think, because what happened was they had a race that was really close. I don't know if it's a House or Senate race, but it was really close, and within 9 votes. And they had 29, Winneshiek County had 29 ballots with no postmark that did not get counted. And unfortunately, a couple of the other counties, from what I've heard, went ahead and counted some of theirs that they shouldn't have. But instead of them getting criticized, Winneshiek County got criticized because they had 29. They did not count because they were not postmarked. And that's the law, the way it is right now. If they're not postmarked, they don't count. But they got criticized heavily by the public and by the news and all that because they felt that that could have swayed that race if those would have been counted. They don't know how those were voted because they're never opened, but, you know,
You've
that
got
was how it
one
started.
set of possible problems getting exchanged for another. This is
Yeah,
a
that's the
solution
problem.
to a problem here.
Right,
I don't
right.
care.
Yeah,
You're gonna have a problem either way.
yeah,
The only way you're gonna eliminate the gray area is it has to be in your office by the,
Close of-
close
Yeah.
on election day.
Yeah.
That's the only way to eliminate.
that's the only way to
gray.
eliminate that, yep.
Only way.
That's the only way. And that's what this resolution was asking the legislature and the, you know, to
So it's
to
just,
do something
it's
to,
just
you
whatever-
know,
it's whatever a person wants to do, you will continue to have, this gray area
Mm-hmm.
with the postmark scenario.
you're gonna continue to have that with the law the way it is now, yes.
Or, you know, it can be the way it is, it's
Mm-hmm.
either postmarked or it's not.
Yeah, yeah. And that's how we have it right now. And like I said, out of all the ones we had after Election Day, we only had 6 that weren't postmarked, you know.
And if you have
Those are the
them that
6
aren't,
that did not count.
if you have them that aren't postmarked,
Mm-hmm.
but they come to your office before election day, what do you do with them?
Oh, those are counted because they're here before Election Day.
Okay,
It's only
so-
the ones that arrive after Election Day, because when they're not postmarked, we have no way of knowing if the person actually mailed it the day before the election, like the law says they have to. They can't mail it after the election's over. And we do get people who do that, because I had a handful there that were postmarked the day after the election or on Election Day, and those don't count if they're postmarked then, you know.
What's the general consensus around the state on this issue?
Well, from what I've seen, just on Friday, it started getting a little heated. I never, when we first put this on the agenda, this was the first I'd kind of seen of this. They didn't really send it out to the auditors, they sent it to the boards, and Nancy contacted me, so we threw it on the agenda quick. But on Friday, there's been a lot of auditors who are kind of against it, a lot that are for it. I'm kind of neutral either way. We don't seem to have much of a problem, so I'm not having that much issue with like I said, we had 6, you know, I mean, out of 80-some, you know, so,
I really don't care either way, but
Yeah.
I'd sure like to see the state be consistent.
yeah. And I think that was part of the problem with this Winneshiek thing that kind of brought it to, we've been tracking this for years of, how many we get with postmarked, how many we don't, that sort of thing. We had for the entire election, prior to Election Day, 87 that were not postmarked. But those counted because they were prior to Election Day. But they've been keeping track of it out of thousands that we had of absentee ballots. So we don't have a lot that aren't postmarked in Muscatine County. I think where that came to a head was because we had a couple of different counties handling it differently, and they shouldn't be. They should be following the law.
Right.
But those counties that didn't follow the law and went ahead and counted a few of those not postmarked ones shouldn't have. But the public was upset with the one that didn't count them, who was actually in the right. They shouldn't have counted them. So, anyway, I think that's where it got brought to a head, but,
You
you
made
know.
nobody happy.
No,
You know,
no.
and
And if you, yeah,
even currently, it's very clear,
mm-hmm,
you know,
yeah,
what has the postmark is counted, the
Yep.
rest
yep,
who's not.
yep,
You
yep,
know, and it's no fault of the voter that it wasn't postmarked.
Right.
It just didn't
Right.
get there.
right. Right, so anyway, I probably, if I would have waited a couple days, would have stalled it a week, putting it before you, just to see what the other counties were saying, but it seemed like it was one of these, it appeared that it was ISACA pushing this that day when we got that first email, and now I'm realizing it's more of a few counties maybe pushing it, so. I'm fine with just not doing it, so,
Well, we could table this as well.
whatever you wanna do.
Does anybody have a real strong feeling on it one way or the other?
I don't think we need to change it, I think it's fine the way it is.
It seems to me like we're trying to solve a problem that's not really a problem. It's pretty clear that,
Yeah,
If you just follow the law of what is currently there,
Right.
there's not a problem.
because I have a problem with, you know, if we get them, you know, like you said, we had a number that were timely postmarked, but we got them after the election day. Well, I'd hate to, in this scenario, they wouldn't count. Well,
No,
that's
they
not
would not.
right either.
Yeah.
There's no fault of the voter.
And I do believe, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know this for sure. It used to be the case years ago, I don't know for sure, but I believe if you actually take it inside a post office and ask them to hand postmark it, I think they can.
If you're gonna do that, why don't you just go down and vote?
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, if you went in, 2 days before the election, because you weren't gonna be here on election day or something like that.
Vote early.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like to do that. They don't, I don't know why, but they don't like to vote it,
Well, until we
come up
start
here, but,
taking over voting
I'm
truck
just
at
saying,
everybody's house,
yeah, I'm just saying that
solve this problem
that's
completely.
another way people can make sure theirs is gonna count, is make sure it gets postmarked on time,
Yeah.
Ask them to postmark it in front of you,
And then they look at you funny.
Yeah, but I guess I wouldn't care if I wanted to make sure my vote counted.
I guess.
Or they could hand deliver it down here instead of to the post office prior to the election, that day before the election, and get it, counted. Or they can hand deliver it on election day if they didn't get it to the post office in time.
I'm comfortable with taking no action on this.
Okay.
I agree. I think, I trust your judgment, Leslie. We've had really no problem in Muscatine County. And it seems like the law right now is pretty clear. If it's timely postmarked, we can accept the vote. If it's not, it comes in after election day.
And I've never had in this county any criticism of what ones we counted and what ones we didn't, because it was always, we always follow the law clearly, so,
Yeah, as long as it's followed to the letter,
yeah.
there's not an issue.
And as you know, receiving criticism is not necessarily an indication whether or not you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Like those folks in.
Yeah, I think they'd been handling it the same way they'd been handling, they were little counties, same way they've been handling it in years, and, the one did it the right way and the other ones did it the wrong way, but nobody cared because they wanted those votes counted, but that's still not right.
Well, I'd say we should just, or suggest we just table this and maybe wait and see what,
Sounds good.
I don't know that we even need to weigh in on it.
I don't have any problem
I don't
not
feel compelled
weighing on
to.
it. There's lots of things out there
Let
that I
the
know, that I
legislature
don't always
argue it
weigh in
out
on
and
because I
see
don't
what they
really
wanna
care.
do.
And I will construe that as a motion by Jeff to table this thing indefinitely.
Yep.
Scott has seconded. All those in favor of tabling indefinitely? Aye. Okay. Thank you, Leslie, for looking into that for us. Item number 7, discussion and possible action to approve 15 special event permits for Arden Creek Vineyard and Winery LLC as requested by Mike Furlong. Article 3, Section 326 of the zoning ordinance allows native wineries or cider mills as a special use subject to specific requirements, including Board of Supervisors approval of any special event at which wine will be sold for on-site consumption and the attendance of more than 35 people is anticipated.
I'll move to approve.
It has been moved by Jeff. Doug has got it in a second here. Scott, you're slowing down. All those in favor? Aye. Motion's approved.
They do a nice job out there, and a lot of people enjoy those events.
Next up, item 8, questions regarding spring gravel road maintenance with Edward Askew. Mr. Askew?
Okay, thank you very much for letting me come and talk. No report, just a couple quick questions, all right? And this is concerning gravel roads and spring and forward, okay? So after spring, summer and such. But as, I don't know if all the supervisors are aware, but I did a Freedom of Information Act request for emails concerning slag here, in January. And I got some data back. And there was one letter in there I found very interesting, and this is just for the chair or the other supervisors, but a gentleman, Pete Mazzarella, sent a letter. It was forwarded by Mr. Mather to all of the different supervisors, and in that letter, Mr. Mazzarella said that he would be providing to the board basically historical for the past few years manganese levels of slag, and also a risk assessment report from the National Slag Association. And I'm just curious, has he provided that to the
No,
board?
not yet.
Okay.
I spoke with him last week, and he said that they are still, I think they're doing their own independent testing, is what he told me they're doing. They were gonna provide us everything all in one shot when that was done. He didn't know when that would be.
Okay, all right. And the second question is, and this is just for the Board of Supervisors, with the data you have right now, would you vote to stop using slag in the county? Not just a moratorium or suspension of it, but would you vote to put on the agenda the next Board of Supervisors meeting, a motion or an action or whatever, to stop using slag in perpetuity? Just quit using it because of the data you have already. That's just a question. Would you do that or not?
Are you talking about slag for everything? Slag as a road rock substitute? What are you talking about?
Well, if it's toxic for the roadside, it would be toxic for fill. It would be toxic for anything unless you were encasing it. So if you said, okay, we're going to use it as an aggregate in concrete and asphalt, okay, you have basically encased it, you have sequestered it. But if it's open slag, so let's just say slag for use as open aggregate on the roads or open aggregate in any application for a county project.
Mr. Ashley, do you know what, like, Canadian Pacific uses for their base?
I'm not concerned with Canadian Pacific, sir. I'm concerned with public roads and I'm concerned with public monies. So that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
All right, so that's what I'll ask. Would you do it or not?
Well, I personally wouldn't right now, and here's why. We have suspended it, so there's no use going on right now. You're asking if we permanently ban it.
Right, permanently banned.
On the data we have now, I think the data we have now, that indicates a possibility of toxicity was given to us by, gosh, I forget the guy's name at the Iowa DNR.
Stu Smith's.
Say his name?
Toxicologist.
Yes.
That's Department of Public Health.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah. Department, he's the gentleman who suggested there might be an issue. I think we indicated a few meetings ago, we had extensive conversations with him on the phone, and they've asked to do some more testing. They were hoping to get that done by this time. Unfortunately, as you know, the weather's been pretty crappy. They haven't, as we understand it, they were gonna do independent testing, but they've told us they haven't even had a chance to get and do that yet. I think when we get those results back, we'll have a really good idea. But since the guy who's the only one who's provided us with evidence of toxicity has said he wants to do more testing and we're not putting any on right now, I don't see any reason to act until we have all the information, since there's zero danger of us putting any on right now.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Do you have any, you said you don't have any other information?
Well, I have a lot of information. I did a Freedom of Information Act request with the state, and all of these items that the gentleman from Mr. Mazzarella promised, he did provide to the state a day after he sent you this letter. So just to let you know, the state has had that information. We've also looked at the historical data, and it's not good. It's not good of what was there and what was being put on the road, no matter whether the Canadian Pacific uses it or not. That's a public, we're a public entity. All right, so it's there. The 2011 analysis report, it's not very good either. And that's the Slag Association has known about it since 2011. SSAB has known about it since 2011.
This is stuff you obtained through your
Freedom of FOIA request with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources.
Would you be willing to share that information with us?
It will be posted online after the public meeting tomorrow. You can get a hold of Mazzarella and say, hey, you gave it to the state a day after you sent us an email. Why can't you give it to us now? As for the analysis they're doing, I actually know the laboratory doing the analysis. I talked to the owner of it yesterday for doing something else, another project. And yes, they're looking at it, but see, you've got two problems here. You've got what you've already put on the road. So all the data you're going to be getting in the future has nothing to do with what you put on the road. Then you have data, what's sitting in a pile over at Harstow. That's what you can put on the road. You have the state report that was done in January that shows it's not good. So to do a study of the roads, which is what Department of Public Health says, and EPA and the CDC said we're going to wait to see what the state does. To do something to say we're going to go out and look at the road, you're looking at the legacy. you're not looking at, no, let me finish. You're not looking at what you can put on the road. So you really have two problems here. But what bothers me is you were promised information, and they more than happily provided it to the state a day after they told you they had it, and they've yet to send it to you. See, now that to me is they have not followed through providing to my local government the information needed to make some of these timely decisions. So
But you could give it to us, right?
I've got it,
Okay.
and it will be presented tomorrow in summary fashion at the public meeting, and then the data will be put on my webpage after the public meeting tomorrow. And I am writing a finalized report based on that data.
We'd sure like to have that.
Yeah, and you know, like I said, part of it is, since I didn't have a whole week to put it all together for you, the presentation basically has been finalized Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I'm still tweaking it a little bit. I didn't have anything to give you in a week. You know, you've asked for a week before I show up and talk. So what I wanted to find out was, by the way, did they bother to give you the same thing they gave to the state? And so they didn't. That bothers me because you guys should have had it. If they can give it to the state the day after they promise it to you in a letter, why didn't they give it to you? Because I have the email from the Freedom of Information Act with the date in which they gave it to the state plus all the data. So that to me is, again, that's nothing I can control. And the follow through on this is, you should have asked, you know, again, you know, hindsight's 20/20. But you could have asked the state saying, hey, by the way, we're talking to you, you're helping us. Did you get this data? Do you have this data? Because a day afterwards, they could have given it to you. So anyway, I have the data. I've done my final PowerPoint presentation. I'll put the PowerPoint presentation and the raw data on my webpage after the public meeting. I'm going to be writing a report that'll go on my webpage sometime this week. And what I am also going to do is I'm going to take the PowerPoint presentation and add audio to it and put that on my webpage. So if any school systems or something like that wants to use the presentation, they can, because I'll have the slides going automatically to each slide with the audio with it. So that's what's going on.
Sure. I was just curious, will your report show the amount of cases of slag-related illness and death throughout the county and the state?
If you look at the 2011 report by the Slag Association, it talks about human risk. And two of the areas they look at are people living alongside the roadway and people who use it to make a driveway. So those are 2 out of the 4 they looked at. So, and frankly, the only metal they found that they needed to be concerned about was manganese. And cadmium, which we've talked about, I'll be talking about, was not looked at because they showed it to have 27 times less than what we had in the IDNR report.
You didn't answer my question,
Yeah.
sir. Will those numbers be in your report, the number of cases of illness and death throughout the county and the state?
No, I don't have that data.
Scott, is that what you wanted to come to, is somebody dead or sick because of the use of the toxic product?
Well, the very first conversation that was had, Doug, in this room, and the information that was given, you'll recall my statement was, I cannot believe the state allows this product to even be on the ground if it is that toxic and that deadly. And so I'm trying to find out, you know, if there is an illness caused or worse.
Well, what they did,
I'm just trying to find information, Doug.
Yeah.
You don't want it to get to that point.
but the Slag
So
Association,
there isn't any, is that what you're telling me?
well, what I'm
Let's see.
saying is
I don't
this,
know.
what I'm saying is the
I'd be curious to see
Slag Association report uses data provided by the federal government saying at this level and higher is adverse health effects. Then it looks to say, all right, using that and using their own calculations, and this is a company out in California that does toxicological studies. They said, here is the likelihood of illness. And they give a percentage, and they give a percentage over, how many times over that is. So that's what I've got. Now, I am sure if we go to the references and then go to those and go back into those, which would be CDC reports, then we would see information either from human or animal studies. I haven't gone that far back because I rely on, or I did rely on, and I will rely on, if there's a published report paid for by the same company that makes the slag, I would assume that they did review of it, or they picked a company that would do the work correctly and come up with this information. So,
Dr. Ersky, you said you knew the lab that's the state is gonna be working with?
no, I knew the lab that SSAB is working with. And they are testing their slag, different parts of the pile, I'll tell you that. Yeah, and they are doing a whole bunch of studies, but that's what they want to put on your road.
Sure, so an independent study would be the best bet.
I would say the best thing to do is you have two decisions to make. Number one, you want to look at the legacy, what's out on the road. You don't want to look at the road, you want to look at the property next to it, what's gotten on people's property. All right? That's the first thing, if you want to look at the legacy. On the other hand, if you look at that and say, we have all of this data from SSAB, which they provide back to 2014, all right, we have all this data on SSAB's level of manganese.
So
Why would we want to put any future on the roads if we have this data? So that's what my presentation, so I don't want to basically continue on boring you with this stuff. It'll all be covered in detail tomorrow night.
Well, so I guess I want to make sure I'm hearing you right. You're saying it's not so important what's on the road right now?
No, you have two concerns.
Okay.
What's on the road right now is getting onto people's property and affecting them. That's your legacy. That's one thing. The future use is another problem.
Sure.
You have information on what's sitting in a pile over there. It's sitting in that pile. They want to bring it, put it on our public roads. Not the railroad, not anybody else, our public roads.
Okay.
That's your second problem. So you have two things, future use and your legacy. Those are two different problems.
So when we spoke with, and I'm sorry, Eric, I forgot his name, Stu, is it? Stu Smith.
Yeah, state toxicologist,
State
Stuart Switch.
toxicologist. Would you agree he'd be an independent party willing to analyze this?
Not if you look at some of the comments his boss has made, and we're going over that too. Because inside all of those emails, I found a whole bunch of talking points.
So who do we believe, I guess, because you're saying the people.
I would say if you can
sorry, sir.
remove, oh, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead, yes.
We've got the slide company who's said they're gonna provide us with some test results, and I completely understand why you would view them with a suspect eye. I mean, people would certainly want their own product to look safe. We've got these historical data points, I guess, that looked at what's on pile, and then we've got analysis that's trying to be conducted by the state as soon as the weather cooperates. You're saying you wouldn't trust the state?
Well, what is the state doing? The state is looking at the roads. That's the legacy. That's what's out there that's been placed out there. All right, so that's the legacy. So if they want to do a legacy study, instead of looking at the roads, look at the property next to the roads.
Okay.
Look what's left the roads and gone onto people's property. Now that I would trust the state to do. As for the state toxicologist waiting for the study, I find it interesting, and I've asked Stuart this, has he received pressure from his bosses not to reply on the DNR analysis that was done in January? Now, what he did was, he originally evaluated the data I provided to him, which was SSAB's 2018 data. And that's when he had all of those negative comments.
From their slide pile, right?
From their, I don't know, they said it was their slag analysis.
Okay.
I'll just have to assume they say slag analysis.
But
All
you
right.
got no indication that was from anywhere other than the slide
Well,
that they
if
sell, right?
Mr. Santacola, who's the environmental guy in charge over there at SSAB, sends me an email saying, here's our slag analysis for 2018, I believe him. I mean, I have to believe him. He's the company, he says, here it is. Would he send me an analysis that was really bad? You know, that's always a question, right? Or really good, I don't know. I just sent the data to Mr. Schmitz. Stuart looked at it, first thing he said is, he said, you mean all slag's not the same? On the phone, he said that. I said, no, it's not. He said, so he evaluated it and came up and we said all these bad things about it, all right? So I send that to the state runs up, takes a sample, and it's split with SSAB off the slag pile. They say this is the slag we would sell to the county. And it comes back, and the manganese is just a little bit lower. It's still bad. So I asked Stuart, I said, okay, I called him up. I said, Stuart, could you please evaluate this data like you did the last one? He said, no. We have to do a study of the roads. I said, well, that's fine. You want to do a study of the roads. Why can't you evaluate this like you did for me previously? And a lot of hemming and hawing. And I asked him, are you being told not to do it? He said, oh no, we're going to do it once we do the road study. That was it. So that was his answer. So instead of doing something that he just done for me 2 weeks earlier, take the data, put it into your calculations and say with manganese at this level, and I asked him to do cadmium also because they finally did cadmium and it jumped out there. Okay? In the 2008 report, they said cadmium was non-detect in slag. And here we got it, the next thing that DNR does, not me, the DNR does, and it's 27 milligrams per kilogram dry weight. There's a lot more cadmium there. So I asked him, could you please evaluate that? No, not until we do the road study. And again, I said, are you being told not to do the work? Now, from the internal emails I got, his boss was discounting anything to do with it being bad.
Who's his boss?
I'll have to look it up again. I'll cover it tonight. I didn't bring the email files with me.
Is he with the State Department of Health? Is he with
Public Health, yes. He is a higher up at the Public Health. Okay? So he puts out a little talking points he shares within DNR. And it's basically dismissive of things. So we just, let it go, and we went on with the public report, or the public meeting tomorrow. So, yeah. I mean, again, I'm jumping over a lot of different things. We're going to cover it more in detail, and we'll take people along the pathway of what's happened with the toxicity of the slag, their exposure risk, the amount above their exposure risk, and who they may basically want to complain to about the slag.
I'm sorry, were you saying cadmium or chromium?
Cadmium, CD. So,
Does this product still have to, has anything changed? I know the report from 08 or 09, it had to be eaten to be a threat. Has that changed?
it's actually respiratory also, sir.
Because when we spoke with Stuart, and it wasn't just him, it was some folks from the DNR, I can't remember, everyone was on the call. I specifically said, give me every single concern you have. Do you have any respiratory concerns? Do you have any leaching concerns? Do you have any, we went through every single concern, element by element, that was, appeared elevated. He said they said that the only concern they had was from manganese levels from children exhibiting the pica or pica, I'm not sure which.
Pica behavior, pica. It depends who you
The
talk to.
kids who eat rocks.
Yeah,
He said the
Does.
only thing that they were worried about, they weren't worried about respiratory, they weren't worried about anything except for kids eating rocks by the side of the road with this.
right. And see, that's interesting because the 2011 slag analysis done by the Slag Association talks about the different particle size and how it gets into the body. And the fact is that we have dust off the slag. The slag people say, well, you don't have to worry about it because there's no dust coming
I'm
off
not
the
worried
slag.
about what slag people say, I'm worried about what the state toxicologist.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying this. The state toxicologist had a report from a reputable toxicological commercial group. They haven't commented on it. They've had that, the DNR's had that since 2014. So I'm just saying is, we're gonna go over this in, you're asking questions. We're gonna go over this in detail tomorrow evening. Come to the meeting if you want to, and we'll take it step by step through everything.
It's just, we're in a position, I think, and I don't wanna speak for everybody, but as we said time and time again, we're not environmental scientists. we get the DNR telling us something, and when the state toxicologist tells me the only thing he's concerned about is, you know, X, Y, or Z, when I specifically asked him, "Are you sure there's nothing else you're concerned about?" I gotta have a really good reason to disbelieve him.
Okay, right. I understand what you're saying,
Cool.
right? There are other groups that don't agree.
Well, my understanding is when we're gonna get the information when they've completed their testing, they're gonna look at it, you know, and just to let everybody else out there know, I think our engineer was going to identify 10 or 20 potential road sites where we put slag down in the past that, and I think they were gonna be even some of our slaggier, for lack of a better term, sites. We weren't gonna know where they picked. They were gonna go out and do it completely independently of us knowing. And they were gonna analyze those samples and get back to us. You know, they'd hoped to do it by the end of February, but as I said, no one's been doing anything for much of February. So they don't have a timetable yet, according to our last conversation with them last week. But that's when I think we're gonna hear from them.
And currently, we have no, I mean, we've already said we're not gonna use slides
Yeah,
until those reports are done, so.
Nothing's been done, you know.
I mean, I think until we have that information presented to us, then maybe we can set another meeting to discuss and review those results, and maybe ask Mr. Askey to, you know, come back then.
Mhm.
But for now, we're not gonna really be able to resolve anything, we've already said we're not gonna use it. And I feel that, you know, I think we need to wait until we have that information before we make any decisions.
Now, if the gentleman on the slide committee, I previously asked if they had property adjoining slag roads, they said that they had, if they'd be willing to get their land tested. I think that'd be a good first step to address one of the problems that you'd said, Dr. Askew, about, you know, what has gotten on people's property. So if they wanna get their soils tested or their waters tested or what have you, to see what, I mean, and not just manganese, but see what kind of crap might be out there, that's probably a good first step.
Who are you, when you say they, who are you suggesting is going to test it and pay for it?
Well, sir, I don't remember who all was here, and I don't remember which exact meeting, but there were a few members of, I guess what you guys call yourselves a slide committee, said, would you guys be willing to look at testing your own land to see if, you know, as a first step?
I don't think those were your words.
Well, that's what I heard.
I was there. I'm
So was I.
not disagreeing.
Okay.
I don't think those were your words.
Okay, so, well, I'd ask it again then, and making sure that you understand those are my words, that would you guys be willing to get your soil tested?
Have them test their own soil, have their soil tested by someone, and them pay for it. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that a yes or no? I didn't get it.
No, I used to get clarification.
Oh, I don't have it.
Oh, you don't have it, sir?
No, it's not on my road.
Okay.
So,
Maybe that's my confusion.
thank God that,
Yeah, maybe
I guess
that's-
mine would be no.
Okay, well, that makes sense then. So, yeah, I mean, and if those show that there's some kind of, an indication with the legacy issue that you identified, that might be a clear jumping off point.
Well, again, my own personal opinion is they didn't put it on the road. People who put it on the road, or the people who said it was safe to put on the road, should be tested.
Well, go get the DNR, have them come out and test it, I guess.
Well, I mean, DNR didn't put it on the road.
Well, DNR said it was safe.
Well, yeah, that's the other half, but they didn't physically go and put it on the road.
No. Are you suggesting that the county go out everywhere, put something down and test if it's safe?
I would say, wouldn't you say that would be good as basically doing your public duty? If you placed it on the road, shouldn't you also then, if there are questions, reputable
If there's an
questions, that it is unsafe?
I think if there's an indication of toxicity, yeah, maybe.
Well, we already have that, so.
Well, you don't. You've
Well,
got-
we have one data point. Now, with what SSAB gave us, we've got another 5 data points. We've
Here's what
got
we'll
the
do.
6th data point from
Here's what I
DNR.
would suggest. Let's find every child exhibiting peak of behavior in the county.
No, wait a minute. No, don't just go to peak of behavior. If you remember what Dr.
That's the sole
No.
condition that has been identified to
No.
us by the state toxicologist.
The state toxicologist also identified children no more than once every 5 days exposure. He had that in that last thing.
I'm telling you what, I talked to him on the phone. Okay?
Well, I'm just saying is, that's what he sent in an email. I have the copy of it. I put that out on a report.
All right.
So that's already been
You
reported.
find me every child that's eaten pieces of this rock
So
in 5
what
days.
you're saying is we have to go out and find
No.
people that have been
I'm saying
adversely
you have to come
affected.
to us with more than a conspiracy theory, like somebody's boss was.
Okay, so a conspiracy theory now. All right, I'm just getting everything straight of what you're saying.
Okay.
As the chairman of the
Yeah.
Board of Supervisors, conspiracy theory has also come up. So I'm just saying, you know, you're asking all these questions, you're asking for this, you're asking for that. You should be going out and determining that. You should be going out and doing that. So,
The fact that
no,
you don't like the way
I'm
we're
going
doing
to,
it
I'm just going to
is
say
all
I'm
you
done now, all right? We're done? We're done.
You're done? Good. Sir, we are doing that, and that's why we've asked the state to test. If I believe, I can confidently state the opinion of folks here that if the state suggests that we need to go out and test because of the apparent toxicity of what is on the roads, we're gonna be more than happy to do that, because we do not want people to be harmed. But until we have some stronger indication beyond, this idea of a kid sitting by the road and eating rocks that might experience some temporary side effects and we have no evidence of, we cannot responsibly, well, that's what peak behavior is, sir. I thought you said you were done.
Eating
So,
dust, not rocks.
Here is the situation. We're getting
They
testing
put their
done.
fingers in their mouths.
No.
So they get the dust in their mouth.
All right,
They're not eating rocks. That's a misconception. That is a misconception of young children and children with autism.
Dr. Skew, do you have any further questions regarding gravel being placed on the roads this spring?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Do you have any more comments that I need to respond to?
I don't know, because this isn't your meeting, sir.
Okay.
So, if I can recap, we are having testing done. The testing will be reported to us by the state authorities in a timely manner, as soon as they can. And we are not putting anything on the roads until and unless that comes back in a positive way. Anybody else have anything to add?
I think once we get those results, then we'll just set a meeting,
Yeah,
and just put it
because
on
right
the
now-
agenda to provide all that, and maybe have those representatives, either DNR or whoever it is, with those emails and attachments with that.
Right, I mean, I think right now there's too much in the air. We've got, Dr. Askew saying, and I respect your opinion, saying that, Harsco and SSAD may have one view of things. They're telling me, in my phone call that I had with Mr. Mozzarella, he's saying that you're off base. So, we're trying, I don't know, you guys can disagree. That's why we're trying to have an independent authority.
But I
with
think
this.
having more data points
Mhm.
help us identify, just because you have one outlier doesn't mean that that's consistent.
Yeah.
And in any sort of lab analysis, the more points are taken of the same samples across, like they did with the DNR and Harsco, and SSAD, all going in and taking independent testing. And if we see a consistent pattern in something, and they come back and say, yes, this is an issue, then we can discuss that, and then we can address it. But, if that's truly the case, it's not Muscatine County issue. You got Wise County, you got Scott County, and
It was worldwide.
this is a much larger issue than what our, county is using, 10 million tons, and these guys are,
Right, that's
producing 400 million tons
That's the reason I asked.
per year, just at that one location. So you start really looking at it at the broader scope, and that's why when I look at,
That's-
Canadian
that's-
Pacific, all these other areas that are multiplying that times a large amount of thousands of miles. It's just a concern that I would rather wait till we get all the data points, all the information, and then we discuss that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a much bigger thing than just
Yeah.
Muscatine County. That's why I asked the questions on a statewide level.
And I'm not saying that there isn't factual, I think it's waiting until we get all of the data points, and that'll identify if there's one outlier or something like that.
Right. Anything further, guys? All right. Next up, I can find my agenda here. Is items with County Engineer Keith White. Projects update, sir.
Good morning.
Keith?
We'll start with the construction project, because there's not really anything new there that you haven't heard about every week.
Yes.
With the weather, there's nothing really going on there. The only thing I would say is we do have the electronic contract back on the bridge project that we awarded, that we need to get with Nathan, so that he can digitally assign that.
Can I come right now to your office after the meeting?
Yeah.
That work?
Sure. And we have the right-of-way documents on a box on 122nd Street, just west of 38th. It's signed. Design, a lot going on there. 171st Street, which is a PCC overlay in Culver. That's about 90% complete, but they need some additional survey. Bridge 126 on 150th Street is 99% complete, on the shelf and waiting till we do our program and decide when that's gonna, Bridge 151, Holly Avenue, same thing, 99% complete on the shelf. And then Bridge 210 on Trolley is a design that Alex is working on. G28, right-of-way purchasing, we did have a meeting with Lutheran, with some of the folks at Lutheran Living, at Lutheran Homes. We're still trying to make contact with Van Day. They'd had this stuff and said, we'll look at it, we'll get back to you, right, you know, but that's, time is marching on. I don't know if you want me to comment on the Lutheran Homes now, or if you want when Doug reports who was in attendance. It's anybody's.
I'd like to know,
Yeah.
Well, they had expressed concerns with G28. When the DOT did the project with Hershey and 231st G28 and us, when they built that overpass, their operations, of course, were impacted for a significant amount of time, that they just couldn't go east. So that's their big concern, is their ability to go east. And really what I'm going to say, at least surprised us, a new position from them, that they absolutely have to go east 24/7, 365. So we explained how we had staged the project, which there's a lot of stages, that they're not the only people that use the road and will be inconvenienced. We have all those subdivisions to the west that they're gonna find themselves having to go west and not east. There are businesses to the west of them. So the thing is staged to keep everybody as inconvenienced as possible. But you really only have to provide somebody one way out. They have a way out to the west. Of course, their concern is a time factor with elderly residents there. But anyway, our plans are staging the thing half and half all the way up to paving. And then the stretch from near the underpass to half of their driveway would be poured and have to cure. So they would have to go west at that point in time. That's probably a minimum of 3 days.
So has their stakeholders changed, or, I mean, why are we getting pushback now when we've had acceptance before?
Well, I would have to speculate to answer that. I think their board really, at the time of right-of-way documents, that's really when they first became aware that they might be inconvenienced, and now there's concern. Anyway, we discussed a number of options with them. One would be to try and, well, really the next best thing is to construct them their own access road in there. Which Dennis had done a rough design and a cost estimate of that, which I cranked down to the lowest number, but that would cost a couple $100,000, and I explained to them, if we do that for them, I don't know how I don't do it for, if you live out there, I don't know how I don't do it for you, so you don't ever have to go to the west. So going through a number of options, they really came down their only interest was either we do our project past them or we don't. And their board's supposed to meet this Thursday. And so by next Monday's meeting, we'll probably know what their desire is, because we can go to the west of their driveway, closer to the Pete Moss business, and have that be our touchdown point and just not do that section. Which I did explain to them, if we didn't do that, we would, you know, we would do the best maintenance on that we could. They just won't have a brand new pavement past them. It does have issues. The desirable thing would be to build it. So we should hear back. That seemed, Doug can weigh in, but that seemed to be the only two options that.
I didn't think the board would be real keen on the extra cost. The $200,000 is the minimum for 3 days. Inconvenient. You can go higher than that. But basically, didn't want to go that route.
Yeah, I understand their issue. But, you know, again, you're dealing with a maybe or a what if, and you'd hate to have some, you know, have a significant issue. I don't know if there were other mechanisms they could use, you know. They're basically trying to guard against an emergency, right?
Right.
You know, maybe they bring emergency responders on site for 3 days, be a lot less money probably than the $300,000 road that we never use again. Then again, like you said, it opens up precedent too for us.
Right.
What do we do the next time something happens and we get?
Well, and this isn't gonna be the only time, unless the world ends, that sometime this road is gonna have to be repaired. So, I mean, we gotta think about going forward too in the future. Has there been any conversation, obviously it's a little late for this instance, but of them having a second access point? I think that would just be smart for a facility with a lot of emergent needs. We don't know.
Not
Guessing you
that
don't.
I know of. But, I mean, maybe they have. They have a rather, my opinion, difficult access point as it is.
Sure.
Switchbacking up that hill. So,
If we choose to not go to their facility all the way up, you said go up to the Pete Moss facility,
yeah.
and we don't do their road, what condition is their access point right now? Is that road 25 years old, 30 years old?
And it's,
Is it cracking really bad?
it has some issues. And I mean, it's well before my time. I don't.
Wow.
But we
Doug
get,
remembers it
I
built
think we get
his time or
significant,
not.
we've had bike clubs complain to us, right, about the size of the cracks in that area, if I'm
Right,
if I'm
you're correct.
where the wheels fall in and they're concerned about riding, cause the trail comes off there and they go down Burlington Road and that's kind of a bad stretch, so I was
Just-
hopeful we'd be able to address that.
Just as a by the way, most of the right of way that we were asking from them, I mean, these are other options too. We can maybe pinch down a little bit and not need any right of way off of them. There's always condemnation for right of way. But one of the plans was on the south side of the road, that's all farm field out there. Right now, if somebody does jump the curb and goes over there, they're gone. That's why there's no, you know, making an access road over there. If we did, we'd have to crowd in. Matter of fact, if that was available, it might, it'd still be pretty costly. It really needs to be paved with the kind of vehicles they need to bring in and out of there. But we are flattening the slopes and building some shoulder out. That's why we were looking at right away on the south side. So there are other improvements there. Plus, most of the pipes under there have issues. And I did tell them, I said, well, if we don't, we might be able to shove some liners through and be able to be off on the side of the road to do some things. But again, Jeff just pointed out, I mean, the road's got some age on it. I said I didn't hear Doug jumping up and saying, yeah, I remember 35 years ago. And I mean, it's been there a long while. I think it was built while Bob was here. but, you know, roads
Well,
need
I mean,
replaced every so
So
often.
Thursday, we're gonna have an idea if they choose to
I,
wanna work with us or not.
I think so,
So I
yes.
think, you know, come Monday, if they say Thursday they don't, then maybe you can look at the other options of what we could do
Right.
to do without,
And
like you mentioned, as far as. going
I
to the-
think, not to put words in their mouth, but I think, you know, they were also looking if we had any other options to give to them. Because, again, their concern is for the safety of the people living there.
And I'm wondering if there's ways we could do like full depth patching as far as what we go in and just do partial pieces in those areas.
That's,
Potentially.
we
but I know you
have
mentioned you have
had
lines
to,
underneath them.
we've had to been doing that, and we'll continue to need to be doing that, and that's what would happen.
Yeah, I mean,
But
if
it's
they
an
were to choose
expensive way to go.
Instead of us saying, okay, we're gonna do, 300 feet of it, of this area or something like that, maybe we do small portions of it,
Mhm.
30, 40 feet at a time until we can address it.
Yep. So, any more on questions on that, 231st? And then, the project up on Iron City, we are, the culvert elimination, we're working on the right-of-way documents on that, and then we had, said from last year, we had 3 rather large, slides that we're working on. They're probably each one's becoming major projects. And then F-58, which is Old 6 from Durant over to the Scott County line. We're working on the longitudinal subdrains for that, and that's about 90% complete. So, you know, frankly, the staff has turned out a lot of work in the last couple months. And I guess I'll jump back to G28 for a moment, and you know, Dennis Michael being the primary designer, and I think he's done a masterful job with that project. Truly a masterful job. Under other, I had several things. We had our conference call with the Army Corps, SHPO, and I'm gonna cast of thousands on the historic bridge up on 120th. The outcome, they're working on, there was a draft document, they're working on it, and then the main players are gone to Mexico for a month or wherever they're going, so, but the takeaway from the meeting was we, the road department, will need to pay $4,250 to the County Historic Preservation Commission for their school and church study. I said sort of the normal outcome of these things would be you document the bridge, you know, photo book and written documentation, and put it on the National Register, but historic, it's already on there, so that normal option's not out there, so they arrived at the cost of doing that is the $4,250, and you know, the good news, if you will, is we're paying at least to another county type entity instead of into SHPO, or not that they would look at that anyway, but, and that document, if it gets done, and of course we'll bring it here. They did want the road department to be signatory. For the Historic Preservation Commission, then I guess the board has to be signatory to that agreement. So that should be coming forth. Want to mention this weekend, we had a lot of flooding out there with roads closed. Really the more common flooding was particularly in flat areas. I think culverts are still frozen shut or mostly shut. ditches full of snow, full of water. I mean, we had, I don't know, acres and acres of ground out there underwater, white caps in the fields, no exaggeration. I can't tell you, until today when we could look at it a little more, I don't think we had significant damage. But the other thing the weekend's rains did was reveal, spring-like conditions, and there were a number of places that are just very muddy, that people going through have to go through or getting stuck in, and there is not, other than it's frozen up and motor grader goes smooth them out, there's not a lot you can do right now. I mean, what the quarry has is frozen in a giant mountain. There's no material to be put out there right now because spring is not here. It just came for a day or two there. So that's kind of road conditions. I believe that's all I have.
All right, anything else for Keith? All right, sir, appreciate it. Number 10, Community Services Update with Community Services Director Kathy Anderson-Noel. Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning, everyone. All right. Starting with an overview of our financials at the end of January. For our mental health budget, we are at 49.48% with a target of 58.33. So we've already received 3 payments from the region of $192.02 each, totaling $576.06, and we are expecting one more payment, which brings the total to $768.08. We had a regional budget work session a week ago Friday, and Nathan and I attended that. They put in the budget in the region, transfers to the region from counties, but the region is aware that Muscatine does not intend to make a transfer to the region, and that seems to be, they're working that out. As far as fund balance issues, we are looking to be at 20% of fund balance as of June 30th, 2020. And the fiscal agent for the region has done a worksheet, which I can pass out to you, showing the various counties and where they're going to be at. And one of the issues that complicates this, and Nathan and I visited with David Farmer, is the fact that they have to allocate back a portion of the regional or the regional pot, the fund balance, back to the counties, and to see where everybody's at, and everybody has to be below 20%. Now, there's legislation that's being talked about to remove those requirements, but nothing's come forth yet.
Kathy, I want to try and remember this because it was a little confusing at the time the way.
It was quite a bit confusing.
So we have to, when this legislation kicks in, the region itself has to be below the certain budget threshold.
Yes.
The balance threshold, too.
Yes.
Each county in the region has to be below its own balance threshold. Otherwise, the state can come in and adjust its tax levy.
Right.
The issue, or one of the issues, is how the state calculates each county's balance for that threshold analysis. And as I recall, David Farmer said there's a couple different ways you can have the state calculate it. One is on the basis of contributions made to the region. So if if the region's got so much money in its pot, and Muscatine County, for instance, has given 30% of that money, then we would be credited with a 30% balance, which would be over that amount. Now, I can't recall off the top of my head the other method he said for calculating the county's fund balance. Do you recall that? Because, and here's the reason I raised the concern, is because as you guys all know, Muscatine County has contributed far more than its fair share to the region.
Right.
Our percentage of ownership or of contribution to the regional fund, therefore, is much higher. Meaning, we will have to reduce our budget much more respective to other counties, or reduce our balance rather, in order to compensate for that artificially inflated. So basically it's saying that because we've given so much money in the past, it's like the region is holding that money in credit for us. And we are going to be penalized because of that, even though that money is no longer in our hands. And my concern is that because we have different possibilities available for calculating how the county's fund balance is determined, that we, in fact, are being penalized. And ironically enough, and I'm not saying there's any ill will necessarily here, but ironically enough, a county that has under-contributed to the region, and I can think of one in particular, will actually be able to spend more and levy more going forward because of the choice that the region wants to make for how it calculates that fund balance. Is that correct?
I think there's several different ways to look at it, but I think, in general terms, yes. And I think the problem with this whole fund balance requirement is that, if counties don't get to a certain level, the state will come in and say, this is your levy. But I believe that they're gonna do that for, by region, not by individual county.
But they have to do it by both under the current law.
Well, what they have to do under the current law is they're looking at individual counties, and, not the region as a whole. So if they looked at each region as a whole, then I think it's easier for regions and counties to determine where they need to be.
That would make sense.
But when you're dealing with a very confusing formula and various variables, because when we were talking with Mr. Farmer, he said that our percentage of ownership of the regional fund balance was about 15%.
I thought you said about 23. And that, because 15% would be that we're under contribute. Well, okay.
Yeah.
You're maybe in a per capita basis.
Okay, that's, yeah. Because he did explain it to us two different ways.
Right.
And I think that's where it gets to be confusing.
And here's my concern. I am concerned the way David wants to calculate wants us to submit to the state to calculate county fund balances, is choosing the one option as opposed to the other, which will harm Muscatine County's interests and will benefit Scott County. Simply because it'll basically say, all right, well, Muscatine County, you've already got more money. It may be sitting with the region, but that's your money, which is disingenuous because we can't get that money back from the region.
Right, and then if we look at fiscal year 20, his calculation shows us going in the negative.
Yeah. So we basically got money sitting in a bank. If you think about it like this, if you've got money in a bank that is going insolvent, you can't get that money out because the bank won't dispense it to you, but you're still somehow charged for having that money. So it's money we have paid that we don't have and that we're going to get dinged on.
Right, and then of course we've got the issue.
I guess what I'd like you to do is, and maybe, and Sherry's not here, but maybe you guys, Sherry could sit down, look at that, because I wish I could remember the other calculation option.
And, we can ask him too, and I can, Sherry and I can maybe get on a conference call with him.
I would like to see
see how Sherry calculates it.
Well, I'd like to see if we run the different, not just the one contribution model, but if we run the various permutations that are allowed by state, which one hurts Muscatine County the least, and why aren't we using that one?
Okay. I will.
I know that's very arcane, but
no, it's
my concern is that David just kind of thrown this out there, and we haven't had any discussion at the county or regional level of the computation method he's using.
Yeah, and we can do that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's kind of where things are at budgetarily and with our regional budget, and overall, still the message is 3078 per capita doesn't work for the region. Doesn't necessarily work for the county either. So, legislatively, I think lawmakers are going to have to look at the long term, because they got us into this mess by Senate File 504. And then we get Senate File 2450, or House File 2456, that mandates even more core services and mandated services that regions have to develop and be able to provide by 2021. And no funding streams or no plan or strategy by the state on how to sustain this all. And I think that's a big concern. I think, Nathan, you share that concern as well. You know, not much has been discussed on the children's system. That was a big hot potato at the beginning of the legislative session, and so far, no one wants to put a price tag on it. But again, this is going to be another one of the state's mandates that's going to come to the regions, and regions are going to have to figure out how to implement and begin providing services once the state determines what services they're going to put into a children's system, just like we've had to do with other regional mental health services. So that's something to definitely keep an eye on. You know, the regional management team right now, we are working on an action plan to address the priorities set out by our strategic planning. We are also, the regional management team, we're going to be getting some training on standardized assessments. The state does require standardized assessments, and these are tools that we can use for our folks that we're spending, you know, a fair amount of money, people in RCFs, you know, getting services that, you know, maybe they don't need quite that high level of service. So hopefully once we're able to start doing that, get the training, we can save some further money. There's going to be mental health first aid trainings that are going to be held in Jackson and Cedar County. Crisis intervention training is going to be available to law enforcement. I've sent out notices for that. And again, that is being planned and implemented by the region. So for mental health, just locally, we've had 14 commitments in January. 11 were mental health, 1 was dual mental and substance use, 2 were substance use. We had 4 that still went outside the region. 1 went to Council Bluffs, 2 to Dubuque, 2 to Cedar Rapids, and we had 2 that began at University of Iowa. So that wouldn't involve any sheriff's transport costs. There's a warm line staffed by peers, available 7 days a week from 5 to 10. And Vera French continues to have the walk-in counseling appointments. As far as our regional services, our regional-based crisis services, our figures as of December 2018, Muscatine had 35 telehealth crisis evaluations. So if you're looking at our regional crisis services, we are a good utilizer of those services that are now in place. The bridge appointments, that's for people that have not been able to get in to see their mental health prescriber, and they need medication. We've had 8 of 16 appointments booked, and out of those, 6 people showed up. And you know, the program is showing lower utilization elsewhere in the region, but we're going to continue to monitor that service. That was a service that you know, people said was, you know, desperately needed. We have been utilizing it pretty well here in Muscatine. Other parts of the region, not so much. So, you know, we're going to continue to take a look at that. A little update on managed care. We've got a 3rd managed care company that's going to start providing Medicaid services in the state of Iowa July 1st. That company is going to be called Total Iowa Care, or I'm sorry, Iowa Total Care. And the bigger entity that owns them is Centene. The other 2 managed care organizations that we have in Iowa are AmeriGroup and United Health. The state, what they're going to do is, starting in March, is for people that right now everybody either has United Health or AmeriGroup, everybody that's on Medicaid. People are going to be receiving letters from the state randomly assigning them to this new company, some people. Now, what they are going to have the ability to do is, if they choose to stay with the provider that they currently have, they have to go through a process and let the state know that. Much like the initial enrollments, when people were randomly assigned to one of the 3 at the time that we had. Now, everyone else, they'll open up an open enrollment date, and so anybody that's on Medicaid that wishes to change their provider will be able to do so, you know, on their annual re-enrollment date. But again, it's going to create a backlog of work, especially for us as we are payee and guardian for some folks, helping people decide, well, do you want to stay with who you've got? Do you want to try this new group? You know, what do you want to do, and working through the process. So I don't anticipate that the process is going to be smooth because it hasn't been in the past. You know, they generally have long wait times. You know, when you call their 800 number to switch or to sign up, people get put on hold for a long time. They have to navigate through an automated menu. So we will, you know, keep tabs on this and see how things play out. But bottom line, in July, we will have, again, 3 managed care organizations instead of 2. One other thing the state is looking at doing is having an assignment algorithm and looking at certain population groups. The group that we generally deal with are called long-term services and supports, and those are the folks that might be getting waiver services, 24-hour kind of services, a higher level of service, you know, based on a disability than maybe some other groups. And so they're going to try to weight the number of LTSS clients that each managed care group has. Now, ultimately, the client does have choice, and that was one of the you know, key requirements that the federal government had for the state of Iowa going to managed care, is that you have to allow people choice. So I'll keep tabs on this and report back to you on this as I have more information and how it's affecting our people in Muscatine County.
Kathy, do we know anything about this Santine group? Have we
Well,
experienced them before?
You know, they're like all the other big insurance groups. You know, there have been concerns with, you know, all kinds of things with them. I think that they compare, you know, their CEO makes millions of dollars, as do the CEOs of the other managed care groups. So that's you know, those are things that are always a concern. As far as their track record and where they're at, you know, they do provide managed care in several different states, as do the 2 that we're already working with.
So we have no prior experience.
We have no prior
how
experience
they are
with
processing claims and
No.
whether they're responsive or not. We'll see
Well-
backlogs for our pay. They pay our providers well, or
You know, some of that information may be available online, you know, and from anything that I've read about them, which hasn't been a lot, I think they stack up with pretty much with the other ones. I think, you know, it's gonna be difficult for people. You know, they're gonna report one thing and the providers may report something else, so. They don't always use the same measuring stick. You know, what they'll use is, you know, okay, you submitted a clean claim and it took us 3 days to pay it. Where the provider may say, okay, I submitted what I thought was a clean claim, you sent it back, you kicked it back to me, I had to spend the next 7 days trying to get somebody on the phone to resolve this and figure out how to make it a clean claim. So, those are the kind of things that you deal with. And I think, you know, anybody that's had experience dealing with some insurance, you know, any kind of insurance claim knows that it can be complicated, it can be confusing, even to people that are well versed in handling those sorts of things. So, moving on to general assistance, MCSA and the United Way are holding sessions to help people file taxes. They had several sessions scheduled in January and February, and many of them got canceled due to weather. Imagine that. And so as far as food sacks, we gave out 34 food pantry sacks in January. And we've got a process where we're taking our inventory, we're letting the food pantry folks know, and then they get us the sacks that we need. We're doing an inventory twice a month, and so, you know, that seems to be working out okay. In January, we paid for 34 unduplicated households at MCSA. We paid $10,015. And in January, we authorized $997 of assistance, and that's 62 households duplicated because we do that verification every 2 weeks with folks. So it's not always the same people every 2 weeks that we're authorizing service for, so. Do you have any questions? All right, thank you both. All.
Next up is item 11, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the February 18 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Jen has moved, Santos has seconded. All those in favor? Any correspondence? Santos?
I had a call, maybe Kate can help us out on this one, in regards to when does the road crews get out to actually start filling out potholes? And if you have any information on some of that.
When the weather's better, that's my answer.
And
I've seen it going on, you throw cold patch in water, you throw it in ice, you might as well go down and dump it in a landfill. So, we have quite unusual weather.
Yeah.
I did notice, don't wanna pick on anybody's road, but driving back 61 yesterday, I mean, there's holes blowing.
Yeah, there's a lot of areas.
61, so,
Where would, one of the questions that was given to me was, where would somebody call or who would they contact if they found an area that they need, area patch? I mean, do they call your office? Do
Yes.
they call?
call our office, yes. If they, I mean, really the absolutely best thing is if they, just call in the general number and speak to the office manager, which she will immediately, I've seen 2 work orders since I've been sitting here.
What number would they tell them to call?
263-6351. And dial 100 or dial 0, but if they just speak to the office manager, she'll immediately create a work order. Or if they want to talk to somebody, she'll find somebody for them to talk to. And that's really the best way. But, there was one day there where the outlook looked good, and we probably would have done some patching, but we might have done some cold patching. We do have some material, but I was sitting here looking at the forecast, the weather is really unfavorable
Yeah.
for that to happen right now. We need above freezing temperatures, dry out a little bit. There are definitely areas that need that.
Yeah, no, I know, I just didn't have the answer when they contacted me on that, as far as who to contact and how to go about it, if it's on the website, if there's information. Okay, that's the only correspondence I have.
Sure.
I had nothing.
I had nothing.
I had one phone call in regard to a road issue of 181st road being soft. An area farmer was hauling a heavy load up that hill on the northeast side of Wildcat Den, and just wanted to bring that to the attention. I told him I would forward that to Keith, and I did. That's all I had.
No correspondence.
Doug, committees?
Yes. Wednesday at noon with local development group. Thursday at 1:30 with Keith and Dennis at Lutheran Living. And Thursday at 7 o'clock was Muscatine County Fair Board.
Scott?
On Monday the 18th, had the Conservation Board, and they're working diligently towards all their projects this summer. The group voted on the purchase of 2 self-contained restroom units, one to go actually at Discovery Park itself, excuse me, and that's going to be located when you go into Discovery Park off of Cedar. The very first left that you can take is into a parking area, and they're going to place this particular restroom on the east end of that parking area. There's a small shelter there as well, and all the recreational people that fish that and so on and so forth. They had the need for a facility there, and they're also, one of them is going to go down to Deep Lakes Park. These units are, like I said, all self-contained, and they cost $16,000 each. Also on Wednesday the 2nd, I had Riverbend Transit, and there was really nothing to report on that meeting that was anything, any new interest.
Did you mean the 20th?
I'm sorry?
Did you mean on the 20th?
What did I say?
Second.
Oh, I lied. The 20th. Sorry.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, last week I had Veterans Commission, I believe we met on the 19th, and discussed an upcoming event in March. We didn't have a quorum, unfortunately. We had one member who's on vacation, one who's in the hospital or quite ill, so we just had to kind of a chat. Jeff?
On the 12th, I had the Regional Workforce Board, and just a note, I know Nancy saw, so they're realigning the regional workforces boards, so something I'll have to digest exactly what that means to us, but, you know, we've been a part of Region 9, so I think the state had 15 regions and they're going to 6. So what that means is, obviously, we're gonna have more people in our workforce board. So that workforce board is made up of providers, you know, so your voc rehabs and all those kind of folks. But also there's the CEOs of each county, and then there are representatives from labor and business in each county, or representatives, and then meet and discuss, you know, kind of federal workforce funding and training and dollars and all that stuff. And so I've been on that board for a number of years now, and I'll tell you, one of our challenges has always been getting good active participation in quorums. And so now when you take what was 5 relatively compact counties, and now we're gonna swoop, I think what they added was all the counties along the river down all the way to the border, Missouri border. So I anticipate that board will become less effective than it has been in the past, which is hard to imagine. And so we'll see. So changes there on the workforce front. And then on the 21st, we had the E911 and E-emergency management at our public hearings, our budgets. So we certified our budgets for the coming year. And that's it.
Santos?
I didn't have anything.
Okay. Next up, any information from can't talk this morning. Any information from county employees? Seeing none, we'll move to items with the administration office. Nancy?
The first item I have is to approve a letter of agreement between Muscatine County and Teamsters regarding amendments to the current deputy sheriff's agreement. It recently came to our attention that the way the contract was being interpreted was causing an issue in terms of how people were paid for holidays. The way the contract was being interpreted because of some conflicting language was if that was your normal day to work and you took a vacation day, it ended up costing you nothing. You didn't lose 8 hours of vacation. But if you did work a holiday, you only got paid 8 hours for it. So it was unfair in terms of what was going on. And so we met with the union and we came to an agreement with them to change the language. So now if you're scheduled to work on a holiday and you take vacation, you lose 8 hours of vacation out of your bank. If you work on the holiday, you get paid for the holiday, you get 8 hours of vacation put in your bank, which is a compromise. But it's certainly, it's treating the employees who have to work on a holiday better, fairer than the way it was being interpreted before.
Okay.
I agree. And I would also say that there's another issue in the contract that we touched on but didn't resolve because it wasn't properly before us. But let's say you're scheduled to work you know, Monday through Friday, and there's a holiday that falls on a Saturday, so you wouldn't be working it anyway. You would get paid for the holiday, and you would get a free vacation day added to you just because the holiday fell when you were scheduled to be off. And that remains in there.
Right.
So basically, it's giving a bonus day of vacation every time there's a holiday, and that remains in the contract through, what, 2021?
Yes, but that's already on our list of things that the next time we do renegotiate the contract, figure out how we can get that fixed.
And one of the problems is that I think with the changes to chapter 20, now all of a sudden we've started applying the employee handbook to people who never had the employee handbook applied to them before. And so it makes total sense to credit an office worker who works Monday through Friday. If Christmas falls on a Saturday, that shouldn't keep them from getting their Christmas pay.
Right, Christmas for the handbook was designed for people who worked in the offices Monday through Friday, and for those folks, if Christmas falls on a Saturday, we're going to recognize Christmas on Friday, and so they get the day off and they get paid for it. That's how it was intended. When you try to now apply it to operations that are 24/7, there's some issues that we're finding, and unfortunately sometimes decisions are being made about how we're going to handle those issues without a full discussion with perhaps myself or the department head, and then we have a problem where we've set a precedence that, you know, now this is one of them, that now we're going to have to negotiate out the next time we're able to negotiate.
Well, I'll move to approve that.
Jeff has moved. Is there a second? Second. Okay, Santos is seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, it's adopted. Next up, review health and dental fund balance as of January 31st, 2019.
And that spreadsheet is in your packet to see. I will report to you that I did meet with our Wellmark representatives on Friday afternoon and got some information. We talked about some alternates that I want her to give us numbers on as well, so that when we come talk to you, you have some options to address some things. The place that the primary thing driving our health insurance increases is prescriptions, the drugs, and we have some specialty there's some specialty drugs that are insanely expensive, and we have some people on our plan that require those drugs. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about is how we deal with that, and how we perhaps address what an employee who uses those pays for them, so that cost isn't being borne by everybody else that's in the plan. They also brought a new wellness person with them, and we had a long discussion about the whole concept of starting to move towards some sort of wellness program, and how you get that up and running, and what to include. And we've had that discussion multiple times in the past. But really, in the past, what's gotten back at us is, you know, it hasn't been very useful in terms of implementation and being able to ascertain if what we're looking at offering our employees is what our employees want. This new gal that I met with is very impressive, and we had a great deal of discussion about how we might survey our folks and find out what kind of things it is they want. So if we look at adding some wellness features, we're perhaps adding stuff that people are actually going to use, or see as a value, you know, see as an incentive to do the things we need them to be doing to be healthier. So that's a process that we're going to work through, but at some point you're probably going to see us come to you with a proposal that we can actually get off the ground this time.
Good. Thank you, ma'am. Anything else, Nancy?
I don't have anything. Oh, just a reminder, I do have something else. The conference board meets Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. It's their public hearing on their budget. So I need some of you guys to show up for that.
I will attend.
Awesome. And then the comp board is scheduled to meet Wednesday at 3:30. Their meeting starts at 3:30. Any board members that might want to address them are scheduled for, about 10 after 4. And the compensation board really likes to have at least one board member show up.
And I'm unable to attend.
Scott, yep, Scott's unable to attend, so if,
That's the Wednesday, 3:30.
Wednesday at 3:30, yep,
The 27th?
yes.
Yeah, I've got bi-state that
Oh, that's
day.
Bi-State, you're right. Shoot.
Well, it sounds like we can have Doug there.
What time is it at?
You would need to be here by about 4:10.
You said the conference board was 6 tomorrow night?
And it's over at what?
At 4:10 is your opportunity to talk to the comp board. I mean, you can stay 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long you want to interact with them, and then you can go after that. Then what they do is work through it and develop a recommendation for salaries for elected officials for next fiscal year. And so then I will bring that to you the following Monday, what their recommendation is. Okay, well, it sounds like we'll have a couple of there then.
I should be able to make the conference board. I have to be at another meeting by 7, but I wouldn't think the public hearing on the budget will be that long.
I don't anticipate that meeting taking much more than about 15 minutes.
Okay. Then do we need, how many board of supervisor members do we need at that? We need at least a quorum of us?
I believe you need at least a quorum.
So Scott will be there, I'll be there. Are anybody else able to make Tuesday at 6? Doug was?
Doug will
Okay.
be here.
So, all right, yep,
All right, so we got a quorum then,
Yep.
okay?
perfect.
Tomorrow at 6.
And those are both meeting here, correct?
Yes.
I'll see if
Anybody else? Anything?
I don't have anything else.
That concludes the public portion of the meeting. We've got a closed session for performance evaluation, but I think we'll take until, 10:50 in recess.